Australia is one of the bucket list destinations for travelers from every continent. The Great Barrier Reef, the Sydney Opera House, the Outback, kangaroos and koalas. The country has built one of the strongest tourism brands in the world, and yet Australia surprises almost every first-time visitor for one specific reason. The country is enormous, and most travelers do not understand the scale until they arrive. The distance from Sydney to Perth is the same as from London to Moscow. Trying to see all of Australia in 2 weeks is impossible. The travelers who plan Australia like a single country trip end up exhausted, having seen very little of it. Australia rewards travelers who pick one region and explore deeply. In the next 12 minutes, I will explain why Australia is bigger than you think, the new ETA visa system, the real costs of Australia in 2026, the 3 regions every traveler should consider, the cultural rules that mark you instantly, and the strategy that transforms an Australia trip. But first, the visa. Because Australia has one of the most complex tourist entry systems of any major destination. Visa rules for Australia in 2026. Australia uses an electronic travel authorization called ETA for most major Western passports. United States, United Kingdom, Canada, EU citizens, Japanese, South Koreans, and many others. ETA cost is around 20 Australian dollars. Apply online or through the official app. Processing typically minutes to hours. Valid for 1 year. Multiple entries up to 3 months per visit. Apply at least a few days before travel. Indian and Chinese travelers need an E-Visa 600 subclass, about 190 Australian dollars. Apply online. Processing takes 1 to 4 weeks. Valid for 1 year. Multiple entries up to 3 months per visit. This is one of the more expensive tourist visas globally. Australia biosecurity is the strictest of any major destination. Do not bring fruit, vegetables, meat, dairy, untreated wood, soil, plant matter, or many other items. Declare everything on your arrival card. Failing to declare can result in massive fines or denial of entry. Real costs of Australia in 2026. Australia is one of the more expensive destinations in the world. A mid-range hotel in central Sydney, around 200 to 350 Australian dollars per night, roughly 130 to 230 US dollars. Melbourne hotels similar to Sydney. Other major cities like Brisbane, Perth, Adelaide, 150 to 250 Australian dollars. Beach towns and smaller destinations, 100 to 200 Australian dollars. A meal at a normal Australian restaurant or cafe, 25 to 45 Australian dollars per person with a drink. Cafe culture is strong. Coffee is exceptional, $4 to $6 for specialty coffee. Australian cafes are world-class. Drinks are expensive in Australia. A beer at a normal bar, 12 to 18 Australian dollars. A glass of wine, 15 to 25. Alcohol has high taxes. Many travelers reduce drinking in Australia for this reason. Domestic flights are necessary in Australia. The distances are too large for trains or driving for most trip planning. Sydney to Melbourne, about 1 hour by plane, 200 Australian dollars typically. Sydney to Cairns, 3 hours flight, $350. A complete 10-day trip in Australia, mid-range hotels, mixing 2 regions including some flights. Around 3,000 to 4,000 Australian dollars per person plus international flights, roughly 2,000 to 2,600 US dollars. Australia is among the most expensive destinations in the world. The 3 regions of Australia every traveler should know. Region 1. Sydney and the East Coast. Sydney has the iconic skyline, the Opera House, the Harbour Bridge, the Bondi Beach. Sydney is the most visited Australian city, 3 to 4 days minimum. The coastal walks like Bondi to Coogee are world-class. Day trips to the Blue Mountains, the wine regions of Hunter Valley. From Sydney, the most common Australia trip continues north. Brisbane and the Gold Coast for beaches. Cairns as the gateway to the Great Barrier Reef. The reef itself is one of the natural wonders of the world. Region 2. Melbourne and the South. Melbourne is the cultural capital of Australia. The food scene is the best in the country. The coffee culture rivals Italy. The Great Ocean Road, one of the great drives in the world. Allow 3 to 4 days in Melbourne. Tasmania, the island state south of Melbourne, is one of the most underrated Australian destinations. Wilderness, food, wine, culture. Region 3. The Outback and Western Australia. Uluru, the massive red rock in the center of the country, is one of the most spiritually significant places in Australia. The drive into the desert is itself the experience. Perth on the west coast feels like a completely different country. Quick interruption. If this Australia breakdown is useful, drop a like. It signals the algorithm to show this to more travelers planning Australia. Now the cultural rules. Cultural rules that mark you as a tourist in Australia. First, Casual culture. Australians are extremely informal. Calling your waiter sir or your hotel staff sir comes across as stiff. First names. Casual conversation. This is the social norm. Second, humor. Australian humor is sarcastic and self-deprecating. Australians make fun of themselves and expect others to do the same. Taking yourself too seriously marks you immediately. Be ready to laugh at yourself. Third, drinking culture. Australian pubs are central to social life. Order rounds. Buy your turn. Stand at the bar to talk. Sitting alone at a table at a pub marks you as a tourist who does not understand the culture. Fourth, outdoor expectations. Australians spend much more time outdoors than most Western cultures. Surfing, hiking, camping, picnics. If you have only indoor plans for an Australia trip, you are missing the country culture. Fifth, sun safety. Australia has the highest skin cancer rates in the world. Australians take sun protection seriously. Hat, sunscreen, sunglasses, sun shirt. Going to the beach without proper sun protection marks you as a foreigner immediately, and you will burn. Before I tell you the strategy that transforms an Australia trip, hit subscribe if this is useful. The channel covers complete country guides every week, and a growing subscriber count helps push these to more travelers. Now back to Australia. The single most important insight for an Australia trip. Stop trying to see Australia. Start trying to see one region of Australia properly. The first-time visitor mistake is to attempt Sydney, Great Barrier Reef, Uluru, Melbourne in 2 weeks. What you get is exhausted travel, long flights, short stays, no depth in any place. The strategy that works: pick the East Coast for one trip. Sydney, beaches, Great Barrier Reef. Pick the South for another trip. Melbourne, Great Ocean Road, Tasmania. Pick the center and west for a third trip. Uluru, Perth, Margaret River Wine Country. 2 weeks for one region. 3 weeks for 2 regions if you really want to combine. The travelers who try to do everything end up with photos of famous places but no actual Australia experience. And here's what almost no first-time visitor knows. Some of the best Australia is in the small towns and rural areas, the wine regions, the mountain towns, the beach communities outside the major cities. These places have the friendly Australian culture that the cities are too busy to show. Here is the truth about Australian wildlife and nature that most travelers do not appreciate. Australia evolved separately from the rest of the world for 40 million years. Many Australian animals exist nowhere else on Earth. Seeing wild kangaroos is easy in rural areas, especially at dusk. They are everywhere outside cities. Wild koalas are harder but possible in the right forests. Wombats, echidnas, platypuses in certain rivers, cassowaries in tropical forests, and the Great Barrier Reef. Despite media coverage of coral bleaching, large sections of the reef remain spectacular in 2026. The reef is also dying in places, which is heartbreaking, and also a reason to visit now, rather than later. The Outback experience is genuinely spiritual. Standing in the middle of red desert with no human structures visible to the horizon, the silence, the vastness. Many travelers report this as the most memorable experience of their life. And the coastlines. Australia has thousands of kilometers of dramatic coast. The Great Ocean Road, the Bondi to Manly coastal walks, the Whitsundays. Almost every Australian beach is empty by European or Asian standards. You can find perfect coastline with no one else on it. So what should you do if you are planning Australia in 2026? First, apply for ETA or e-visa early. ETA takes minutes to hours. E-visa takes weeks. Plan accordingly. Second, pick one region only for your first trip. 2 weeks for the East Coast or the South or the center. Trying to do all of Australia leads to a worse trip. Third, book domestic flights weeks ahead. Australian domestic flights are expensive and prices rise as the date approaches. Jetstar, Virgin Australia, and Qantas are the main carriers. Fourth, travel in shoulder season. September to November is Australian spring. March to May is Australian autumn. The weather is mild. The crowds are smaller. Avoid Australian summer in the north, December to February, which is brutally hot and humid. Fifth, talk to Australians. Australians are some of the friendliest people in the world to strangers, but only if you initiate. Strike up conversations at pubs, cafes, on transport. The travelers who do this have the best Australia experiences. Australia in 2026 is one of the most expensive but most unique travel destinations in the world. The country is bigger than its reputation. The culture is friendlier than its reputation. The nature is more spectacular than the photos. If this video helped you plan a real Australia trip, drop a like, subscribe, and press the bell icon. Tomorrow, another country worth knowing. See you then.